The city of New Phoenix thrummed with life, a kaleidoscope of sound, color, and alien languages that clashed and mingled like the notes of an experimental symphony. Here, humans and extraterrestrial visitors lived side by side, or at least tried to, navigating the peculiarities of coexistence. Neon lights painted the skyline in electric hues, while holographic advertisements flickered and danced above the crowded streets, hawking everything from interstellar delicacies to biomechanical upgrades. Callan Rook wove through the chaos, clutching his reusable shopping bag, a gift from his ex labeled, "To Infinity and Beyond Groceries." As he searched for the one vendor who hadn't yet swapped his coffee beans for some galaxy-famous Zainari brew that tasted suspiciously like burnt mushrooms. The marketplace was a labyrinth, each turn revealing more impossible sights. A Terran juggling plasma orbs, a hoverboard race breaking out in a nearby alley, and a pair of human kids trading jokes with a Phyrexian whose laughter sounded like a hiccuping engine. He paused, his eyes caught by a display of tiny floating gardens. The plants, imported from a distant moon, hovered mid-air, their roots encased in glowing spheres of nutrient-rich gel. "Fancy plants for fancy people," he muttered, moving on. The thought of spending his weekend watering something that could fly felt like an unnecessary commitment. That's when he saw her. She stood near the corner of a food stall, partially hidden behind a display of alien fruits that looked like fluorescent pine cones. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft, bioluminescent shimmer that marked her as Zainari. Her features were delicate, yet distinctly otherworldly. High cheekbones, a slight lavender hue to her complexion, and those enormous, iridescent eyes that seemed to drink in the world, and those eyes were locked on him. Callan felt the moment stretch unnaturally, the bustling marketplace fading into the background as her gaze froze him in place. He thought about saying something, but what exactly does one say in this situation? "Hi, I'm Callan, and you look like you've seen a ghost." Didn't seem like the best icebreaker. Her lips parted slightly, as if she was about to speak, but no sound came. She didn't blink, didn't move, just stood there as if rooted to the spot. It wasn't just staring, it was something deeper, like she'd just been struck by a bolt of realization that her brain hadn't quite caught up to. Can I help you?" Callan asked, his voice awkwardly filling the silence between them. No response. The vendor, a squat Irvanian with tentacle-like appendages, interrupted. "You buying or just blocking my stall, buddy?" Callan turned briefly to mumble an apology, but when he glanced back, the woman was gone. Well, not entirely gone. She had fled so quickly that she'd left something behind. A sketch pad lay on the ground, its cover worn and edges frayed, as though it had been carried everywhere for years. Against his better judgment, Callan picked it up. He flipped through the pages, expecting to find alien landscapes or abstract art. Instead, he found something that stopped him cold. It was a picture of him, or at least, it was close enough that the resemblance couldn't be ignored. The figure in the sketch was undeniably human, but its body was mechanical. Glowing wires ran across its form, and a single circular light in its chest pulsed with life. The face, though rendered with intricate detail, was unmistakably his. "Okay," Callan said aloud, his voice tinged with disbelief. "This has officially crossed into weird territory." A passing Phyrexian stopped to glance at the sketch. "You look better as a robot," it quipped before ambling off, its engine laughter sputtering in its wake. Back at his apartment, Callan couldn't shake the image from his mind. The sketch pad sat on his cluttered desk, surrounded by the remnants of his attempts to get organized last month. He stared at the drawing, half expecting it to spring to life and start accusing him of something he didn't remember doing. "Why me?" he muttered. "Why not some other random guy? There's got to be a million faces she could have picked. Maybe she's a bad guesser. Or she's got a type. Yeah, maybe alien crushes are a thing now." He paused, realizing he was talking to himself again. His small companion, a robotic cat named Gizmo, beeped in agreement. Callan waved it off. "Don't start with me, Giz. You're not exactly helping." The robotic cat chirped indignantly and swiped at the sketchpad, nudging it closer. "You think I should find her?" Callan asked, half joking. Gizmo blinked twice, a programmed response for, "Yes, you idiot." Meanwhile, in a dimly lit apartment on the other side of the city, Kira sat trembling on her couch. The faint hum of her atmospheric regulator filled the silence, a reminder of how far she was from the open skies of Zynar. Her glowing hands clutched her head as fragments of the encounter replayed in her mind. "It's him," she whispered to no one. "It's really him." Her dreams had been vivid, almost painfully so. Visions of the man's face, his mechanical body, his glowing chest. She'd chalked them up to stress, a subconscious manifestation of her obsession with Earth's robotics. But today, seeing him in the flesh, alive and human, had shaken her to her core. Her communicator buzzed, and Jet's voice crackled through the speaker. "Hey, you okay? Heard you had a meltdown in the market. Did someone finally insult your taste in snacks?" Kira groaned. "Not now, Jet. Come on, you know I'm just teasing. What happened?" "I saw him." There was a pause. "Him? You mean, oh, Dream Boy?" Kira didn't bother answering. Jet's laughter came through the line. "Wow, 3 years of sketching your mysterious crush and he's real? You're either the luckiest girl on this planet or the universe is messing with you." "It's not funny," Kira snapped. "It's a little funny." Kira sighed, her bioluminescent skin dimming slightly. "I don't know what it means, Jet, but it can't be good." "Well," Jet said, "if he's a robot in your dreams, maybe he's here to fix your love life. Or, doom us all. 50-50, really." Kira couldn't help but laugh, even if it was brief. Still, the weight of the encounter pressed down on her. Somewhere in the city, the man from her dreams was holding a piece of the puzzle neither of them understood. Kira sat in her apartment, the soft glow of her Zynari bioluminescence pulsating faintly against the dimly lit room. Her walls were lined with holographic projections of Zynari landscapes, a comforting mirage of towering crystalline forests and rivers that shimmered like liquid light. But even the simulated beauty of her homeworld couldn't chase away the anxiety clawing at her. She flipped through her dream journal, its pages filled with sketches, notes, and half-formed thoughts that had haunted her for 3 years. The man's face stared back at her from nearly every page, sometimes human, sometimes robotic. Each drawing felt more vivid than the last, as if her subconscious had been practicing for the moment it would meet him in the flesh. She stopped at the most recent sketch, the robotic version of the man, his mechanical arm extended toward her, circuits glowing with a soft blue light. Below it, she had scrawled the words, "Protect the bridge. The timeline depends on it." Kira didn't remember writing that part. She let out a shaky breath and closed the journal. Her communicator buzzed, and she groaned. "Jet, not now," she muttered, but the device persisted. Reluctantly, she tapped the screen. Jet's grinning face appeared, his pale blue skin gleaming under the fluorescent lights of his lab. "Hey, how's my favorite overly dramatic Zynari? Still brooding, or have you started writing poetry about Dream Boy yet?" "Jet," Kira warned, "I'm not in the mood." "Good, because I've got news that'll cheer you up," Jet said, his grin widening. "I fixed the atmospheric regulator in my lab. No more sulfur smell." "That's great. Truly life-changing," Kira deadpanned. "Hey, don't knock it. Do you know how hard it is to impress humans with advanced Zynari tech when they're gagging on rotten egg fumes? Anyway, back to you. Tell me about the market. Did he say anything? Did you say anything? Or did you just do your famous deer in hoverlights impression?" Kira groaned and buried her face in her hands. "I froze, okay? I just stood there like an idiot, and then I ran away." Jet burst out laughing, his image flickering slightly as his holoprojector struggled to keep up. "Classic Kira. The universe hands you a miracle, and you bolt like someone offered you a salad." "It's not funny," Kira snapped, though her glowing skin betrayed her embarrassment by shifting to a faint pink. "Oh, it's a little funny," Jet said. "But seriously, what's the plan now? Are you going to find him?" Kira hesitated, her gaze drifting back to the closed journal. I don't know, I feel like seeing him was the start of something, but I don't know what. And it's not just the dreams. It's this feeling, Jet. Like everything's connected, and it's all leading to something big. Jet leaned closer to the camera, his expression softening. Hey, if anyone can figure it out, it's you. You're the smartest person I know. And if all else fails, you can always use your Zainari charm to woo him into explaining everything. Kira snorted. Yeah, because awkward silence is so charming. Meanwhile, across the city, Callan was having a similar existential crisis, albeit with less bioluminescence and more coffee. His apartment was a cluttered mess of half-assembled gadgets, books on robotics, and a disturbingly large collection of novelty mugs. He stared at the sketchpad on his desk, now propped up next to a mug that read, "World's Okayest Human." The drawing of robot Callan seemed to mock him, its glowing eyes practically daring him to make sense of it all. "Okay," he said aloud, pacing the room. "Let's think this through." A glowing alien lady freezes when she sees me, drops a sketchpad, and inside is a picture of me as a robot. Normal day, totally fine. Gizmo, his robotic cat, meowed in agreement, or at least made a sound that approximated a meow. "Thanks, Giz," Callan said, flopping onto the couch. "What do you think? Destiny? Cosmic prank? Or am I finally losing it?" Gizmo beeped twice, a signal Callan interpreted as all of the above. "Great, very helpful." He reached for his communicator and hesitated. His best friend Max would undoubtedly have something sarcastic to say about all this, but Callan wasn't sure he was ready to be roasted just yet. Instead, he opened his search interface and typed in, "Zainari Dreams Human Robot." The results were less than helpful. Most of them were conspiracy theories about secret Zainari tech or clickbait articles with titles like "Top 10 Signs Your Alien Neighbor is Dreaming About You." Callan sighed and closed the search. "Guess I'm on my own with this one." Later that night, as both Kira and Callan lay awake in their respective apartments, the city hummed around them, alive with the sound of hovercars, distant laughter, and the occasional robotic announcement reminding citizens to please recycle for the good of the galaxy. Kira's dreams came for her as they always did, vivid and relentless. She saw the man again, his robotic form glowing in the darkness, reaching out to her. This time, there was more. Flashes of a crumbling city, a rift of swirling energy, and the haunting sound of a mechanical voice repeating the same phrase, "Protect the bridge. The timeline depends on it." She woke with a start, her glowing skin flickering erratically. Callan, on the other hand, wasn't dreaming. He was too busy dismantling an old holo projector in an attempt to distract himself. But as he worked, a strange sensation washed over him, a tingling in the back of his mind, like the faint echo of a memory he couldn't quite grasp. He paused, his hand stilling over the tangle of wires. For a moment, he swore he heard a voice. "Protect the bridge." "What the hell?" Callan muttered, looking around his empty apartment. Gizmo chirped at him, unimpressed by his sudden paranoia. "Great," Callan said, tossing the wires aside. "Now I'm hearing things. Just what I needed." He glanced at the sketchpad one last time before heading to bed, his mind swirling with questions he wasn't sure he wanted the answers to. The New Phoenix Interstellar Library wasn't your average repository of dusty books. Towering above the city like a crystalline monolith, its structure shimmered with holographic projections of stars, constellations, and swirling galaxies. It wasn't just a library. It was an archive of everything sentient species across the galaxy had chosen to preserve. Kira stood in the vast atrium, staring up at the dizzying array of floating data pods that zipped through the air like industrious fireflies. Each pod contained knowledge from a different world, its contents accessible through an interactive holographic interface. It was a place of wonder, but today, wonder was far from her mind. Her hands clutched her dream journal tightly as she made her way to the Earth Studies wing. If she was going to figure out why a human stranger had been haunting her dreams, This seemed like the logical place to start. Of course, logic felt like a bit of a stretch when the universe was throwing cryptic messages and robot doppelgangers at her. Meanwhile, Callan stood in line at the library's cafe, staring blankly at the menu. "Welcome to Quasar Coffee," chirped the overly cheerful holographic barista. "Can I interest you in our Nebula Nitro brew, or perhaps a galactic green tea latte?" Callan squinted at the options. "Do you have normal coffee?" The barista's smile flickered. "Normal coffee? You mean non-galactic coffee? Let me check." It pretended to shuffle through invisible files before beaming. "Nope, just galactic options. Would you like to try our black hole espresso? Warning, it's incredibly dense." Callan sighed. "Sure, whatever." He grabbed his drink and headed to the Earth Studies wing, driven by the gnawing curiosity he hadn't been able to shake since finding the sketchpad. As he walked, the library's AI politely reminded visitors not to hover too close to the data pods or attempt to borrow holograms. Kira was buried in a holographic display when Callan entered the wing. She had a cluster of data streams open around her, each one containing information about Earth's robotics history, cultural myths, and Zainari human relations. Callan almost didn't notice her. He was too busy marveling at the fact that the library had a vending machine selling snacks labeled alien cuisine, may contain tentacles. But then he saw the faint shimmer of her bioluminescent skin, and everything else faded into the background. It wasn't just recognition. There was something magnetic about her presence, something that pulled at him in a way he couldn't explain. Kira, sensing eyes on her, turned abruptly. Her gaze met his, and for a split second, they both froze. "You," Callan said, breaking the silence. Kira's heart raced, her glowing skin pulsing slightly brighter. "Me?" she said, her voice higher than she intended. "Yeah, you," Callan said, holding up the sketchpad. "You dropped this yesterday. Thought you might want it back." Kira stared at the sketchpad like it was a ticking time bomb. She wasn't sure whether to thank him, run away, or apologize for being the galaxy's most awkward dreamer. "Thanks," she mumbled, taking it from his outstretched hand. Callan hesitated. "Listen, I don't mean to be weird, but why is there a picture of me in here? And why am I a robot? Is this some kind of alien prank or—" "It's not a prank," Kira blurted. She clutched the sketchpad tightly, her glowing skin dimming as embarrassment crept in. I've been dreaming about you." For years, Callan blinked. "Years?" "Yes, and I know that sounds crazy, but I swear I'm not stalking you or anything. I didn't even know you existed until yesterday." Callan scratched the back of his neck, unsure whether to be flattered or freaked out. "Okay, so you dream about me, but I'm a robot. Do I at least have cool robot powers? Like laser eyes or rocket fists?" Kira couldn't help but smile at his attempt to lighten the mood. "You mostly just talk in cryptic riddles and tell me to protect a bridge." "A bridge?" Callan repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah. I don't know what it means, but it feels important," Kira said, her voice softening. Callan sighed and took a seat across from her. "Well, you're not the only one having a weird time. Ever since I found your sketchpad, I've been hearing this voice in my head saying the same thing. Protect the bridge." Kira's eyes widened. "You've heard it too?" "Yeah, and it's really annoying. Like if this is some kind of cosmic warning, couldn't it at least give me a location, or a diagram, or a bridge-building manual?" Kira laughed, a genuine melodic sound that surprised even her. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, she felt a little less alone. Their laughter was interrupted by the sudden arrival of a data pod, which zipped down from the ceiling and hovered directly in front of them. Is it supposed to do that?" Callan asked, eyeing the glowing sphere warily. "No," Kira said, her voice tinged with both curiosity and caution. The pod projected a holographic interface, displaying a string of coordinates accompanied by a single word, bridge. Callan and Kira exchanged a look. Okay, Callan said slowly. Either the universe is messing with us, or we just got our first clue. Kira's bioluminescence flickered with nervous energy. I don't believe in coincidences. Neither do I, Callan said. He paused, then added with a grin, although if this turns out to be a tourist trap, I'm holding you responsible. Kira rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. For the first time in years, she felt like she might finally get some answers. As they left the library together, the city of New Phoenix stretched out before them, its neon-lit streets and towering skyscrapers humming with life. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the galaxy, a bridge awaited them, a bridge that could hold the key to their shared mystery. But as they ventured into the unknown, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure watching them from a nearby rooftop, its mechanical form glinting faintly under the city lights. The coordinates led Kira and Callan to a remote sector of New Phoenix, one neither of them had ventured into before. The neighborhood was a patchwork of forgotten buildings, remnants of Earth's first experiments with multi-species urban design. Rusted signs in a dozen alien languages hung precariously from crumbling facades, while overgrown vegetation claimed hovercar husks and abandoned kiosks. This place screams bad idea, Callan muttered as they stepped off the hover tram. Kira shot him a glance. You're not scared, are you? Scared? Number cautiously skeptical? Definitely. He pointed at a broken sign that read, Welcome to Nova Unity District. The cheerful text undermined by graffiti that simply said, Run. Relax, Kira said, her bioluminescence faintly glowing in the dim light. If anything happens, I'll protect you with my Zainari charm. Oh, good. I'll just hide behind the glowing alien lady. That's super inconspicuous, Callan quipped. The tension between them eased as they bantered, but both knew they were heading towards something neither fully understood. The coordinates terminated at an old transit station, its once bustling platforms now silent and covered in a thin layer of dust. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and faint traces of burnt metal. Creepy abandoned station. Classic, Callan said, stepping cautiously onto the platform. Next, a mysterious voice will tell us to split up, and then I'll conveniently disappear. Just like the horror vids. Don't worry, Kira said, smirking. If you get kidnapped, I'll come find you, eventually. Comforting, Callan deadpanned. As they moved deeper into the station, they noticed faint blue lines glowing along the walls and floor, markings that pulsed rhythmically, as though guiding them forward. This is either really advanced tech or someone's idea of mood lighting, Callan said, crouching to inspect one of the glowing lines. Kira touched the wall, her fingers brushing against the light. It's Zainari technology, she said, her voice tinged with awe. But old, ancient even. I've never seen anything like this before. Ancient Zainari tech in an Earth transit station? That's not suspicious at all, Callan said, standing up and brushing off his hands. So what's it doing here? That's what we're going to find out, Kira replied, following the glowing path. The trail led them to a heavy metal door, its surface etched with intricate Zainari symbols. Kira recognized some of the glyphs as words for connection, bridge, and time, though their arrangement didn't make immediate sense. Well, this screams do not enter, Callan said, crossing his arms. What's the plan? Knock and hope it's not a death trap? Kira rolled her eyes. It's a door, not a puzzle. Let's see if it opens. She placed her palm against the center of the glyphs. The symbols flared to life, illuminating the entire door in a cascade of shimmering light. Slowly, it slid open with a low hum, revealing a chamber beyond. Okay, that's cool, Callan admitted. Still creepy, but cool. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with crystalline panels that glowed faintly. In the center stood a pedestal, atop which rested a device that looked like a cross between a compass and a holographic projector. Kira approached cautiously, her bioluminescence dimming instinctively. This "This is incredible," she murmured. Callan followed, peering over her shoulder. "What is it?" "It's a Zainari temporal key," Kira said, her voice filled with reverence. "These were used in ancient times to stabilize rifts in space-time, but they're supposed to be myths, artifacts lost to history. So we just found an ancient time-stabilizing thingy in an abandoned station," Callan said, his tone skeptical. "Totally normal." Kira glanced at him. "You're handling this surprisingly well." "What can I say? I'm adaptable," Callan said with a grin. "Also, I'm low-key panicking, but you can't tell because I'm very good at sarcasm." The Kira examined the key, her fingers hovering above its surface. "This explains the dreams," she said softly. Callan frowned. "How does this explain anything? All I'm getting is that you're an ancient artifact nerd, and I'm somehow involved in this mess." "It's not just a mess," Kira said, turning to face him. "This key is tied to the bridge, the one we're supposed to protect. If it falls into the wrong hands—" Callan held up a hand. "Wait. Hold on. Bridge? You keep saying that like it's obvious. What kind of bridge are we talking about here? A literal bridge? A metaphorical one? A bridge to another dimension?" Kira hesitated. "I don't know yet, but I do know that this key is important. And so are you." "Me?" Callan asked, incredulous. "What could I possibly have to do with this?" Before Kira could answer, the chamber shuddered. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, and the glowing panels on the walls shifted to display a holographic map of the galaxy. In the center of the map was a blinking icon labeled Temporal Nexus Bridge Point. "Well, that doesn't look ominous at all," Callan said, staring at the map. Kira's eyes narrowed. "It's a location. The bridge is real." "Great," Callan said. "So now what? We hop on the next shuttle to ominous Nexusville and hope for the best?" Kira didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the map, determination etched into her features. "We go to the bridge, and we figure out why the universe chose us to protect it." "Fantastic," Callan said, clapping his hands together. "Just one question. Do we have a plan, or are we winging it?" "We're improvising," Kira said with a faint smile. "Wonderful," Callan said, shaking his head. "Remind me to add spontaneous intergalactic adventures to my resume." As they left the chamber, the heavy door sealed itself behind them, the glyphs dimming once more. Neither noticed the small, spider-like drone that had been observing them from the shadows, its mechanical eyes whirring softly as it transmitted its data. Far away, in a control room filled with screens and blinking lights, a figure leaned back in their chair, watching the feed with keen interest. "Excellent," the figure murmured, their voice smooth and cold. "Let the game begin." The journey to the temporal nexus began with an anticlimactic realization. Neither Callan nor Kira had the faintest idea how to navigate the galaxy's sprawling transportation networks. "You'd think the universe would at least provide a map," Callan grumbled, as he squinted at a screen displaying a tangle of interstellar routes. "Or, I don't know, a space GPS?" "We're looking at one," Kira replied, pointing at the holographic map flickering in front of them. "You just need to stop complaining and help me figure out which of these systems is closest to the coordinates." Callan leaned closer, his brow furrowing. "This thing looks like spaghetti made by someone who hates straight lines. Can't we just ask someone?" Kira rolled her eyes. "Sure. Let's waltz up to a stranger and ask them for directions to a top-secret temporal rift. That'll end well." "Fine," Callan sighed. "But if we end up lost in the middle of nowhere, I'm holding you personally responsible." And their first stop was a bustling spaceport that could only be described as organized chaos. Ships of every size and design filled the docks, their crews shouting over each other in a cacophony of languages. Callan's eyes lit up when he spotted a vendor selling food that resembled deep-fried spheres of glowing jelly. "I'm starving. Want one?" he asked, already heading toward the stand. I don't think eating radioactive snacks is a good idea, Kira said, trying to steer him away. Relax, Callan said, grinning. What's the worst that could happen? Glowing skin? Superpowers? I'm willing to take the risk. You already glow, Kira pointed out, referring to the faint shimmer of his sweat-dampened skin under the artificial lighting. Then I'll match you, Callan quipped. Before Kira could respond, a burly alien with scales like burnished copper cut in front of them. It grunted something in a guttural language that Kira recognized as an obscure Zainari dialect. Careful, she whispered to Callan. That's a Braktan. They don't like humans much. Good to know, Callan said, lowering his voice. What do they like? Privacy, quiet, and being left alone, Kira replied. So basically the opposite of me, Callan muttered. The Braktan turned and glared at him, its slitted eyes narrowing. Callan offered an apologetic smile. Nice scales, he said. Very shiny. To Kira's surprise, the Braktan let out a deep rumble that might have been a laugh before lumbering away. You're lucky flattery works across species, Kira said, shaking her head. After securing passage on a modest freighter bound for the system near the coordinates, they settled into the ship's lounge, a cramped space filled with mismatched furniture and an ancient jukebox that alternated between static and alien ballads. Cozy, Callan said, sinking into a lumpy chair that squeaked ominously under his weight. I give it 3 stars for ambiance, but 5 for sheer character. Focus, Kira said, pulling up the holographic map. We need to plan our next move once we reach the system. The Nexus could be heavily guarded, or worse, completely inaccessible. Callan leaned forward, studying the map. You're forgetting option 3. It's a trap. Kira frowned. Why would anyone lure us to a random temporal rift? I don't know, Callan said. Maybe they're bored. Or maybe they've been watching too many human dramas. Either way, we should be prepared. As they debated their strategy, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Attention, passengers, came the captain's gruff voice. We've detected an anomaly in our route. Brace for turbulence. Callan looked at Kira. Define anomaly. Before she could answer, the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared as the lights flickered, and a translucent figure appeared in the center of the lounge, a shimmering projection of a humanoid being with a featureless face. Travelers, the projection intoned, its voice echoing eerily. You're venturing into forbidden territory. Great, Callan said, gripping the armrests of his chair. We've angered the space hologram police. Identify yourselves, the figure demanded. Kira stepped forward, her bioluminescence flaring slightly. We're on a mission to protect the bridge, she said, her voice steady. The projection tilted its head. The bridge is not for mortals to protect. Turn back now or face the consequences. Define consequences, Callan said, raising a hand like he was in a classroom. The projection didn't answer. Instead, it dissolved into a shower of sparks as the ship stabilized. Well, that was ominous, Callan said, exhaling deeply. What do you think it meant by not for mortals? I don't know, Kira admitted, but it means we're on the right track. If someone, or something, wants us to turn back, there must be a reason. The freighter docked at a small outpost orbiting a barren moon, its surface scarred by ancient craters. The coordinates pointed to a location on the moon's surface, but the outpost's personnel warned them of dangerous temporal distortions in the area. Temporal distortions, Callan repeated, his voice tinged with sarcasm. Wonderful. What's next? Gravity spikes? Angry moon monsters? Possibly both, Kira said, strapping on a lightweight environmental suit. Callan groaned as he donned his own suit. Why is it that every time I meet someone interesting, it ends with me risking my life? Consider it character building, Kira said with a smirk. As they descended to the moon's surface in a rickety shuttle, the strange energy surrounding the coordinates grew palpable. The air shimmered with distortions, and time itself seemed to stutter, moments repeating or stretching unnaturally. Callan winced as his comm crackled with static. Please tell me this is normal for temporal rifts. It's expected, Kira said, though her expression betrayed her uncertainty. The shuttle landed with a jolt, and they stepped out onto the rocky terrain. In the distance, a structure loomed, a sleek, alien construct that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. The bridge, Kira whispered. Callan squinted at it. That's not a bridge. That's a glowing, futuristic thing. It's metaphorical, Kira said, rolling her eyes. Come on. As they approached the structure, the distortions grew stronger, and faint whispers filled the air, fragmented voices speaking in languages neither of them could understand. Callan shivered. Tell me those aren't ghosts. They're echoes, Kira said, her voice steady. Memories trapped in the rift. Great, Callan muttered. Memory ghosts. That's so much better. They reached the base of the structure, its surface smooth and cool to the touch. Kira placed her hand against it, and the whispers fell silent. A doorway appeared, opening into darkness. Well, Callan said, peering inside. Ladies first? Kira gave him a look but stepped forward, her bioluminescence lighting the way. As they entered the bridge, a low hum filled the air and the doorway sealed behind them. Somewhere in the darkness, something stirred. The interior of the bridge was unlike anything Callan had ever seen, or, as he put it, like walking into a sci-fi fever dream, but with worse lighting. The walls shimmered as if made of liquid starlight, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves in patterns that felt both chaotic and deliberate. The air buzzed with an electrical hum, and faint beams of light danced around them, occasionally forming shapes that dissipated before they could be fully understood. Okay, this is officially the weirdest room I've ever been in, Callan said, glancing around. And I once got lost in a nightclub that had a rotating floor and holographic goats. Kira, who was examining the shifting patterns on the walls, didn't look up. Focus, Callan. This isn't a nightclub, it's the bridge, and it's alive. Alive? Callan asked, raising an eyebrow. What, like a pet? Should we bring it a snack or something? Kira sighed. I mean, it's sentient, or at least semi-sentient. Look at how it's responding to us. As if to prove her point, the shimmering walls pulsed gently, the light shifting in response to her movements. Great, Callan muttered. A sentient bridge. What's next? A talking door that gives life advice. The further they ventured into the structure, the more surreal it became. The floor seemed to ripple beneath their feet, and the air grew thicker, charged with an energy that made Callan's skin prickle. So, is it just me, or does this place feel like it's judging us? He asked, glancing at the walls. It's not judging, Kira said. It's assessing. The bridge was built to protect something important, probably the rift itself. It's trying to decide if we're a threat. Well, if it's looking for a threat, it's got the wrong guy, Callan said. I don't even threaten expired yogurt. Kira chuckled despite herself. Just stay close. If this place senses hostility, it might react. Good to know, Callan said. So no sudden movements or bad jokes? No bad jokes, Kira agreed, though her faint smile suggested she wasn't entirely serious. They reached a central chamber, where the walls gave way to an open expanse of swirling light and energy. In the center floated a figure, a humanoid construct made of translucent material that refracted the light around it, giving it the appearance of a living prism. Travelers, the figure said, its voice resonating like a chorus. You have come to the bridge. State your purpose. Callan blinked. I don't suppose we got lost is an acceptable answer? The figure turned its faceless gaze toward him, and for a moment the chamber grew unbearably still. Callan? Kira hissed, elbowing him. Fine, he muttered. We're here because, well, we don't really know. But we think it has something to do with the rift and why she's been dreaming about me. He gestured at Kira. And before you ask, no, I don't understand that part either. The construct tilted its head, as if considering his words. The dreams, it said slowly, they are a consequence of the connection. What connection? Kira asked, stepping forward. The bridge exists to anchor the rift, the figure explained. It is both guardian and gatekeeper, but the rift is unstable. It reached out, searching for balance, and it found you. Us? Callan asked. Why us? I'm just a guy who fixes stuff and she's... He paused, gesturing vaguely at Kira. Well, she's definitely not just anything, but still. The construct turned toward Kira. You carry the blood of the Zinari, the creators of this place. Your presence was always destined. And me? Callan asked. What's my excuse? The figure paused, its crystalline form flickering. You are unexpected. Callan groaned. Great. Even ancient alien tech thinks I'm a wild card. Kira's mind raced as she processed the construct's words. If the rift is unstable, she said, what happens if it collapses? The fabric of reality will unravel, the figure replied calmly. Time and space will cease to exist as you understand them. Lovely, Callan muttered. So, no pressure or anything. What do we need to do? Kira asked, ignoring him. The key you carry is one part of the solution, the figure said. But stabilizing the rift requires both of you. Together, you must recalibrate the bridge. Wait, Callan said, holding up a hand. Recalibrate how? Is there a button we press or do we just vibe really hard? The construct didn't respond directly. Instead, the chamber shifted, and a console-like structure emerged from the floor, its surface covered in glowing symbols. Great, Callan said, staring at the console. Alien hieroglyphics. My favorite. Kira stepped forward, studying the symbols. These are Zinari equations, she said, her voice tinged with awe. I think I can decipher them. Well, good, because the only equation I know is pizza plus me equals happy, Callan said. As Kira worked on the console, Callan paced nervously, glancing around the chamber. The swirling energy in the center seemed to grow more turbulent, its colors shifting erratically. Kira? He said. I think the rift's getting cranky. Almost there, she replied, her focus unwavering. Suddenly, the energy coalesced into a beam of light that shot toward them, stopping just short of the console. From the beam emerged a series of fragmented images, scenes of destruction, timelines collapsing, and a shadowy figure standing amidst the chaos. Callan stared at the images, his usual humor momentarily replaced by unease. That's not good, right? No, Kira said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's what happens if we fail. Well, Callan said, forcing a grin. Failure's overrated anyway. As Kira entered the final sequence on the console, the chamber shook violently, and the energy around them surged. The construct's voice echoed over the chaos. The rift resists, it said. You must act quickly. No kidding, Callan shouted, gripping the console to steady himself. With a final keystroke, Kira activated the recalibration sequence. The chamber filled with blinding light, and the energy stabilized, its turbulence giving way to a calm, steady glow. The construct turned to them. The bridge is secure, but the rift remains unstable. Your journey is not yet complete. Of course it's not, Callan said, slumping against the console, because saving the universe is never easy. Kira placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression both determined and tired. We'll figure it out, she said. We have to. Callan nodded, managing a weak smile. Well, if nothing else, at least it's been a hell of a first date. Kira laughed softly, the sound a rare moment of levity in the surreal chamber. As the construct began to fade, it left them with one final message. Beware the shadow. It knows you now. The words hung in the air as the chamber dimmed, leaving Callan and Kira alone once more. The rift loomed ahead, a swirling maelstrom of energy and fractured light that defied logic and burned itself into the edges of Callan's vision. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, as though the universe itself was straining to contain its fury. Callan tightened the straps of his suit, glancing sideways at Kira, who stood steady, her gaze fixed on the chaos. "So," he said, trying to keep his tone light, "on a scale of 1 to terrible idea, how bad is walking into a reality-eating hole?" Kira smirked, a flicker of amusement breaking through her determined expression. "If you're asking me, it's about 11, but since we don't have a choice—" "Right," Callan interrupted. "Straight into the 11 we go. I just hope the rift doesn't have a no-refunds policy." She laughed, the sound a surprising balm against the surreal tension surrounding them. The rift's edge crackled with energy as they approached, the air thick and heavy with a gravity that wasn't quite gravity. Each step felt like walking through invisible molasses, the space around them distorting in unnatural waves. Callan winced as a burst of static rang in his ears, followed by disjointed whispers. "Kira," he said, glancing at her nervously, "please tell me you hear that too." "I do," she said, her bioluminescence flaring slightly in response to the ambient energy. "It's the echoes. The rift is trying to communicate." "Communicate?" Callan asked. "Well, could it maybe try email? This whole whispering in my head thing is a bit much." At the core of the rift, they found what could only be described as a temporal engine, a massive alien mechanism that pulsed with the same rhythm as the rift itself. It looked ancient, its surface etched with glowing Zinari symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Is this the source?" Callan asked, squinting at the swirling energy. Kira nodded, stepping closer to the engine. "It's the stabilizer. Or at least, it's supposed to be. Something's corrupted it." "Corrupted it how?" Callan asked, frowning. Before Kira could answer, the air around them darkened, and a shadowy figure emerged from the rift. Its form was fluid, shifting between humanoid and something far less definable, its presence radiating malevolence. "Ah, great," Callan muttered. "It's the bad guy. I was starting to think we'd skip that part." The shadow spoke, its voice a low, resonant growl. "You should not have come." "Yeah, well," Callan said, stepping in front of Kira instinctively. "We're not exactly here for the scenery. Got a universe to save and all that." The shadow ignored him, its gaze fixed on Kira. "You carry the blood of the Zinari," it said, "but you lack their wisdom. Leave now, and I may spare you." Kira stood her ground, her light intensifying. "We're not leaving. The rift is destabilizing, and we're here to fix it. Whatever you are, you're not stopping us." The shadow laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. "Fools. The rift is beyond saving. It is the gateway to freedom, for me and for all who have been trapped by the Zinari's arrogance." "Freedom?" Callan said, tilting his head. "You don't strike me as the let's hold hands and sing songs type. What exactly are you planning to do once you're free?" "Consume," the shadow said simply. "Ah," Callan said, nodding. "See? That's a red flag. Big one. We're going to have to say no to that." The confrontation escalated quickly. The shadow lunged toward them, its form stretching and twisting unnaturally. Kira reacted instantly, raising her hands to project a shield of light that forced the entity back. "Callan!" she shouted. "The console, there's a failsafe." Callan ran to the engine's console, his hands hovering over the alien controls. "Failsafe, got it. But, which button is the Save the Universe button? Because these all look like the blow something up kind." "Just trust your instincts," Kira yelled, her voice strained as she held the shadow at bay. "Great," Callan muttered. "No pressure." And the symbols on the console seemed to shift in response to his touch, and a sudden clarity washed over him. Whether it was the rift's influence or some deeper connection, he found himself understanding the controls. "Okay," he said, his fingers flying across the console. "Activating the failsafe, now!" The engine roared to life, and the rift's energy began to stabilize. The shadow let out a furious howl, its form unraveling as the stabilizer's power intensified. "This isn't over," it growled before dissolving into the light. Callan collapsed against the console, breathing heavily. "Tell me that worked," he said, looking at Kira. "It worked," she said, her light dimming as she relaxed. "The rift is stabilizing. We did it." As the rift's energy settled into a calm, steady glow, the construct from the bridge reappeared, its form more stable now. "You have succeeded," it said. "The rift is secure, and the shadow is contained once more. The universe owes you a great debt." "Does this great debt include a vacation?" Callan asked. "Because I could really use one of those." The construct tilted its head, as if considering his words. "You may rest now. The bridge will ensure the rift remains stable." Back on their shuttle, Callan and Kira sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their journey settling in. "So," Callan said finally, breaking the silence, "I think I've earned a lifetime supply of glowing alien jelly snacks. What about you?" Kira laughed softly, the sound lighter than it had been in days. "I think we've both earned a break." "Good," Callan said, leaning back in his seat. "Because saving the universe is exhausting. Let's leave that to someone else next time." Kira smiled, her gaze drifting to the stars outside. "Next time," she said quietly, her voice filled with both hope and resolve. And as the shuttle carried them away from the rift, the universe felt just a little more stable and a lot more connected.